Hello everyone, SquaredCircle Wrestling is back with another episode, which includes major update on WWE mass releases. Is Bayley leaving WWE? Vince McMahon's return to creative power isn't a terrible news for Cody Rhodes. Vince McMahon's return could keep Kenny Omega away from WWE. Brock Lesnar talks retirement, and much more. Before we start, make sure to subscribe to our channel for all the latest updates. Our first story looks at major update on WWE mass releases. Despite the purchase of WWE by UFC's parent company Endeavor, it looks like Vince McMahon still have control over the mass layoffs. As Observer says, to be determined, I can't say for sure. It really depends on the mentality of creative, and that's gonna be Vince again. Rather than, I don't see Ari Emanuel saying, hey Vince, we've got too many guys in developmental. He's gonna go, tell me about this developmental, and it's gonna be whatever Vince says it is. If Vince feels that this is the way to go and we sign 200 guys to get 10 stars out of it, then that's the way they're gonna go. If Vince goes, we've got too many guys here, it's not a good idea, then he could do that and a bunch of people in developmental would be let go. That would have been the way before Vince McMahon left. And so that'll be a Vince McMahon decision. That's certainly not up to anyone else. Next up, Vince McMahon heavily involved in creative for this week's Raw. Now with Vince McMahon back in charge, it seems he is working in creative for WWE once again, as it was said that Vince McMahon was personally and heavily involved with last night's episode of Monday Night Raw. PW Insider has confirmed with multiple sources. PW Insider is told that about 15-20 minutes before Raw went live on the air, a number of late rewrites for the episode were ordered. Described as not feeling like the type of changes talents and staff had come to expect under Paul Levesque. Changes for the episode continued as the show well into being on the air, and we are told they came directly from McMahon, who had his own office at Raw, just as he did before his retirement in the summer of 2022. While McMahon stated he would not be in the weeds of creative on CNBC yesterday, we were told by multiple sources who were at Raw that there was no doubt that Vince was firmly back in charge following the Endeavor acquisition of the company. Next up, massive negative shift in WWE morale following Vince McMahon's return. When it comes to the internal reaction to McMahon's creative return, PW Insider added, among some talents we spoke with, there was a huge negative shift in morale as they realized that things were going to go back to exactly where they were before Paul Levesque was placed in control as chief content officer. One source said the place felt nuked, but others didn't go that far. The feeling was that going forward, the likelihood was that McMahon would be overseeing everything again, leaving the creative once again to his whims and sensibilities, although whether that actually plays out remains to be seen. A big part of that feeling of resignation was that Levesque is genuinely liked and trusted by the talents, especially since so many came through the WWE NXT system, and far some of them. That feeling of security many had felt in the run from SummerSlam to WrestleMania was no longer a given, and would be far departure from how some we spoke to felt tonight. Next up, Vince McMahon's return to creative power isn't a terrible news for Cody Rhodes. With Cody Rhodes getting beaten by Brock Lesnar on this week's Raw, Dave Meltzer mentioned what Vince McMahon's return to creative power means for the American Nightmare on Wrestling Observer Radio. Another thing is that Vince is the one who personally recruited Cody Rhodes, not Triple H. Not that Triple H didn't use him well, he used him great. But Vince was the one who flew to Cody with Bruce Pritchard, and Cody at the time wasn't looking to go. Bruce Pritchard called and asked, "Are you interested?" And Cody said, "I might as well hear them out. I'm a free agent." Then Vince flew down to see him, and once Vince flies down to see you, you know, he's got that aura, and he's convincing. Cody still had to go back and forth and everything. But it was Vince who largely was the one who got this deal done, so Cody's not some guy that Vince hates, he's a guy that Vince brought in. Next up, Vince McMahon's return could keep Kenny Omega away from WWE. Speaking about what McMahon's return to power could mean for Kenny Omega possibly signing with WWE, it was noted on Wrestling Observer Radio. For Kenny Omega, and people like that, you know, when it comes time for that decision, unless he's making the decision to stay, if he makes the decision to leave, that final decision isn't coming for months anyway, so you know, yeah, of course it's gonna have an effect. If he looks and sees that he thinks that he won't be happy, then he'll make money either way, so it doesn't matter. It's just what his personal goals are, and I know his personal goals is to have the most fun possible. Next up, WWE's war against AEW won't be better under Vince McMahon regime. Discussing about what this could mean for WWE's competition to AEW, Meltzer stated, "It's Vince. Vince has an MO. It's gonna be the same, if not worse. You know what? I think that because of what happened to NXT and losing every week and getting run off Wednesdays, I think it was more personal to Triple H to get back at Tony Khan. Because I think that I remember Tony Khan's comments on this, and I kinda see things the same way as that, when Vince was out of power. You kind of think that the big bad Vince is gone, and now we're gonna have reasonable people there. Maybe, you know, they'll work together, whatever, it won't be more cutthroat without Vince. so it ain't gonna be any worse in that sense. But yeah, you know Vince is the master of that kind of business and Triple H has a personal issue with them. It ain't gonna get better. Next up, is Bayley leaving WWE? Former SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley was apparently supposed to accompany Sky and Kai to the ring for their Women's Tag Team Championship #1 contenders match against Liv Morgan and Rodriguez. For some reason, she was cut at the last minute, and Damage Control took another loss. Fightful report on the impact Vince McMahon running last night's Raw had on locker room morale. It mentioned 2 stars, including one near the top of the card, told the site they're likely to request their release if McMahon is in charge every week from here on out. Fightful's Sean Ross Sapp has reiterated that his report didn't mention any names, and that no one he's aware of have requested their release from WWE today. But given the other items above, that hasn't stopped the speculation Bayley could be following her best friend Mercedes money out the door. Next up, major update on Andrade and his status with AEW. The former NXT champion revealed in an interview with Lucha Libre Online that his contract with Tony Khan's promotion expires soon. He also reveals that he will be back in action soon following a surgery he had in November. I'm with AEW, to make it clear. Soon my contract will expire. I had a tear in my chest and I got surgery in November. I was out for 4 months, but soon I'll be back. I was at the Hall of Fame accompanying my wife and to be next to a great friend, Rey Mysterio. He's the symbol for all the Latinos, Rey Mysterio. Next up, major update on Jay White potentially signing with WWE. Jay White finished up his deal with New Japan Pro Wrestling after he was defeated by Eddie Kingston in a loser leaves NJPW match at Battle in the Valley in February. Since that night, there has been plenty of speculation about where Switchblade will show up next. Some fans were hoping that White would make a surprise appearance at the post-WrestleMania 39 episode of WWE Raw. Now PW Insider had stated, based on multiple conversations with WWE officials and talents, White does not appear to be on his way to the promotion. There was said to be absolutely no discussion within the organization over WrestleMania 39 weekend about bringing in the 30-year-old. Next up, Brock Lesnar talks retirement. Brock Lesnar has said he does not know how much longer he will be around in WWE. Lesnar, who defeated Omos in the WrestleMania Night 2 opening match, was speaking with Daniel Cormier for ESPN. Talking ahead of Sunday's match, he said, "In 2020, I retired and was gonna be just done. I had my 20 years, COVID hit, my contract was up. I had my first match in Hamel, Minnesota in an empty garage. Here I was 20 years later, fighting Drew McIntyre in front of no people for the WWE Championship. I was like, you know what? It's came full circle, and I was truly done." As for his future with WWE, he said, I don't know. I don't know how much more. I don't know how long I'm gonna be around." And that is all for today's episode. Make sure to subscribe to our channel SquaredCircle Wrestling for all the latest news.